Paul Serusier was a French post-impressionist painter, theorist, and teacher whose pioneering vision bridged the worlds of Impressionism, Symbolism, and abstraction. As one of the founding members of Les Nabis, a group of avant-garde artists who sought to unite art and spirituality, Serusier played a crucial role in redefining the visual language of modern art. His exploration of color, form, and mysticism deeply influenced the next generation of artists, including Bonnard and Edouard Vuillard, and laid philosophical foundations for early 20th century abstraction. Paul Serusier was born on November 9, 1864, in Paris, France, into a middle-class family that valued education and discipline. His father, a perfume manufacturer, initially intended for him to pursue a career in business, but Serusier's artistic inclination was apparent from an early age. After completing his studies at the Lycée Condorcet, he entered the Académie Julian in 1885, a progressive art school that attracted young talents from across Europe. At the Académie, Serusier was trained in the traditional techniques of academic painting, but soon grew restless with its rigid formulas. Paris in the 1880s was a crucible of artistic experimentation. Impressionism had challenged conventional realism, and artists such as Gauguin, Van Gogh, and Cézanne were pushing the boundaries of expression. Serusier, curious and intellectually inclined, absorbed these currents eagerly, searching for a personal philosophy that could give art deeper meaning than mere imitation of nature. Serusier's life changed dramatically in the summer of 1888, when he travelled to Pont-Aven, a small village in Brittany that had become a gathering place for artists seeking to escape Parisian materialism and rediscover nature's purity. There he met Paul Gauguin, whose influence would prove decisive. Under Gauguin's mentorship, Serusier was introduced to synthetism, a style emphasizing flat color areas, bold outlines, and emotional or symbolic content over realistic representation. Gauguin urged him to paint from memory and imagination rather than direct observation, insisting that the artist should express the idea of nature, not its literal appearance. One day, during a painting session in the Bois d'Amour near Pont-Aven, Gauguin guided Serusier through an exercise that became legendary. He instructed him to paint a small landscape using pure, non-naturalistic colors, liberated from academic shading and perspective. The resulting small wooden panel, titled Le Talisman, the Talisman, captured the spirit of Gauguin's teaching, an abstract, luminous landscape painted in radiant greens, oranges, and yellows. When Serusier returned to Paris with the panel, he showed it to his classmates at the Académie Julian, proclaiming it as a visual talisman of new artistic truth. The painting became a symbol of liberation from realism and a catalyst for a new artistic movement. Inspired by Serusier's talisman and Gauguin's philosophy, a group of young artists formed Les Nabis, from the Hebrew word nabi, meaning prophet. This brotherhood included Bonnard, Edouard Vuillard, Maurice Denis, Paul Ranson, and others who shared a belief in the spiritual and symbolic potential of art. Serusier, as their intellectual and spiritual leader, emphasized the role of the artist as a visionary. He believed painting was not just a craft, but a form of revelation, a way to express invisible truths through visible forms. The Nabis rejected the illusionistic goals of naturalism and instead sought to integrate color, rhythm, and symbolism into a unified decorative art. Under Serusier's influence, they developed a language of simplified shapes, flat planes of color, and ornamental patterns that blurred the boundaries between painting, illustration, and design. Their work anticipated later developments in abstraction, fauvism, and even modern graphic design. Serusier's philosophy resonated with the symbolist movement of the 1890s, which aimed to convey the unseen forces of emotion, faith, and myth through visual art. Serusier was not only a painter, but also a thinker. He drew inspiration from philosophy, mathematics, and theosophy, exploring the relationship between color, form, and harmony. He saw painting as a disciplined and almost musical arrangement of elements governed by laws of proportion and balance. He believed colors possessed inherent symbolic and emotional values. Red, for instance, could evoke warmth and passion. Blue suggested spirituality and calm. The interplay of colors, he argued, created a kind of visual music that could elevate the viewer's mind. These ideas culminated in his 1921 treatise, ABC de la Peinture, the ABC of painting, where Serusier articulated his theories of color harmony and abstraction. In it, he wrote that a painting should be constructed like a symphony, each part contributing to the unity of the whole. The book became an influential text among modern artists seeking to reconcile intuition with structure. Serusier's early paintings reflected the rustic charm of Brittany: peasants, landscapes, and religious scenes rendered in broad, luminous color fields. Works such as Breton Women at Prayer and The Harvest exemplify his synthesis of natural observation with symbolic composition. By the mid-1890s, his palette grew more subdued and introspective, reflecting his deepening interest in spirituality and mysticism. Influenced by esoteric philosophies and medieval art, Serusier turned towards subjects of myth and allegory, depicting figures that seemed to exist between dream and reality. His brushwork became more deliberate, his compositions more geometric. He often employed rhythmic repetition and symmetry to evoke a sense of universal order. These tendencies aligned him with contemporaries like Odilon Redon and Maurice Denis, who also explored the intersection of art, religion, and idealism. During the early 1900s, Serusier moved to Châteauneuf-du-Fay, a quiet village in Brittany where he spent much of his later life. There, he painted contemplative landscapes and developed his theories of color harmony in solitude. His work from this period is marked by a meditative simplicity: gentle hills, winding rivers, and stylized trees that seem to breathe serenity. While Paul Serusier's name may not be as instantly recognizable as Monet or Gauguin, his influence on modern art is profound. Through Les Nabis, he helped shift the focus of painting from representation to expression, paving the way for movements like Fauvism, Cubism, and abstract art. His emphasis on the spiritual dimension of art inspired painters such as Wassily Kandinsky, who would later articulate similar ideas in Concerning the Spiritual in Art, 1911. Serusier's belief that color and form could convey emotion independently of subject matter anticipated the non-objective art of the 20th century. Moreover, his insistence on the unity of the arts, painting, decoration, design, helped dissolve the hierarchy between fine and applied arts. The Nabis, decorative panels, posters, and tapestries echoed Serusier's vision of art as a living presence integrated into everyday life. In his later years, Serusier devoted much of his time to teaching and writing. He taught at the Académie Julian in Paris, where he mentored younger artists seeking to explore color and abstraction. His students admired his disciplined approach and his ability to combine mystical thought with rigorous method. Despite withdrawing from the bustling Parisian art scene, Serusier remained intellectually active. He continued to explore the metaphysical aspects of art, often referencing Pythagorean geometry, medieval symbolism, and Platonic ideals. His correspondence and lectures reveal a mind deeply engaged with the philosophical underpinnings of creativity. Serusier died in Morlaix, Brittany, on October 6, 1927, leaving behind a legacy of innovation that transcended his lifetime. His works can now be found in major collections, including the Musée d'Orsay in Paris and the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Quimper. Paul Serusier occupies a unique place in art history, as both a bridge and a prophet. He bridged the gap between Impressionism's sensory immediacy and the abstract symbolism of modernism. His small yet revolutionary painting, Le Talisman, stands today as one of the key turning points in the evolution of modern art, a humble wooden panel that announced a new way of seeing. His contributions were not those of a flamboyant genius, but of a quiet visionary who transformed artistic perception through reflection and discipline. Serusier's art asks the viewer to look beyond appearances, to see color and form as manifestations of inner truth. In many ways, he embodied the Nabis ideal of the artist as a spiritual guide. His approach, rational yet poetic, mystical yet structured, continues to inspire artists, designers, and theorists who seek meaning beyond surface beauty. Through his paintings, writings, and teachings, Paul Serusier left behind more than an artistic legacy. He offered a philosophy of creation rooted in harmony, sincerity, and faith in the unseen. His life's work reminds us that painting, at its highest form, is not a mirror of the world, but a revelation of its soul.